Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to another Wild Rift video. And in today's video I'm gonna show you guys a tier list for every single role in the game. And yet again, you know, new updates come, new changes come, dragons got changed. Like, there's a lot of different things that got changed, which of course changed the whole meta as well. So there's timestamps in the description to skip to each role. But before we get into the video, just a quick word from the video sponsor. This video is sponsored by wildstats.gg, and honestly they keep adding stuff to the website which makes it more amazing. Like, for example, when you now click on an actual champion, it shows you like a whole profile of the 14-day trend, the win rate, the pick rate of a champion. But what I like the most is seeing this popular with. So you can see, you know, Lux is very good with Shyvana, very good with Mundo, Malphite, strong against certain champions and then weak against. So like, don't play Lux into Zed, don't play Lux into Janna, don't play Lux into any. And this makes sense because these champions do indeed counter Lux. And then what's also amazing is you can see what the best items are, and then you can also see the top builds. Like, look at this right here. You can clearly see Luden's Echo, Rabadon's Deathcap is the way to go on Lux. And then after that, you know, you go for these items. For example, I didn't know you should go for Liandry's on Lux in the late game, but now I know it. And then you can also see the runes. This is just honestly amazing. Like, absolutely amazing to see all of these builds from the best Lux players. And you know what to build just because you can see it right here. So yeah, you can check out wildstats.gg through my link in the description. So back to the video. Alright, let's start into the Baron lane. And guys, somehow, some way, AP Gragas got buffed, and that makes him broken. Like, AP Gragas is gonna be broken in the Baron lane. I'm gonna make you guys a video, of course. I'm working on it already. And like, this guy, you can always pick him, literally. You know that he does have counters. I'm not saying he doesn't. For example, like, Lucian really counters him because Lucian can dodge out your stuff. But what I'm saying is, you can always pick AP Gragas because even against a Lucian, you can flash on him with your third ability and one-shot him. That's the late game Gragas. Late game Gragas one-shots, and it's even like the one-shot is even stronger now than before because they buffed his AP scaling. So it's just, he's broken. You pick him whenever you want to. Garen is also still kind of broken, like super unbelievably tanky. Is very good at split pushing, very good at 1v1s, very good at team fighting. He's very good at everything. He's one of the tankiest champions in the game. And like, it's so easy to play Garen. You get Grasp of the Undying, you play the early game out very easily, you get your ultimate. It's such a brain dead ability, but it works so well. And then to add to that, the second ability, which makes him super tanky for a really long duration. Next up, we got Fiora, who's not a tank, but Fiora is incredibly powerful right now. I'm making a Fiora video for you guys, by the way. Her 1v1ing is unrivaled. Like, she 1v1s pretty much any champion. Her early game is very powerful. Her late game, like, she does struggle with late game team fighting, but her late game split pushing honestly compensates for it. That's what makes her so powerful. You gotta play her with a certain playstyle, but if you do, she's like super powerful. Next up is Sett, and Sett is like the champion that has it all, really. You know, he has it all. It's like, he has damage, he has tankiness, he has burst, he has CC, he has everything. He's so good. Like, his ultimate is especially good because you can take away enemies that are very dangerous. For example, you know, an assassin dives your backline, Sett can ult that assassin away. Or for example, you can dive the enemy backline, take the ADC and pull him into your team. And then his third ability disrupts enemies, second ability makes him tanky, deals true damage. Like, he really has it all. His 1v1ing is also very powerful. His laning, his turret pushing, his split pushing. As I said, like, he really has it all. Next up, we got Camille, and Camille right now, I would say is strong. Like, in the Baron lane, she's strong. She got nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. So she will struggle more in the early game. Like, you will struggle a little bit in the early game matchups against champions like the Garen, like the Sett, like the Fiora. I really like against anyone, to be honest. But late game, it's the same Camille. And as I said, like, even with the nerfs, she's still powerful. Like, once you reach mid game, you won't feel the nerfs as much anymore. She's still super duper powerful. Another champion that is insanely powerful is Jax. And this guy, oh my god. Baron lane Jax, as I said, is even stronger than before. Like, he's so powerful right now. Like, honestly, I almost put him up even higher, but these guys are just stronger than Jax. But that doesn't take away from Jax. Like, compare him to anyone else here, like Nasus, Cannon, whatever. Jax is unbelievably powerful, like super duper powerful. His split pushing is so fast, and then in the late game, he is just a broken champion. If you reach late game team fighting, split pushing, it doesn't really matter. He will do it all. Next up is Darius. Darius is a little bit weaker than before, but still S+ tier. He deserves it. And it's honestly because of his ultimate, his sustain with his first ability during team fights, and his early game laning is pretty strong. Like, it's pretty strong. The bleed hurts a lot on the enemy. When you get your full stacks healed, he does so much damage. No one can really fight him when he has full stacks. So definitely an S+ tier champion. Next up is Riven, who got buffed for some reason. I believe her third ability got buffed. Riven is like, it has to be in the right hands. Riven is not just S+ tier in any hands. You have to be very skilled to play Riven. Like, you really have to be able to play with Proto Belt. You really have to be able to play with flash combos with Riven. You really have to be able to just play with good combos and be able to cancel your basic attacks so you maximize her damage. So like, Riven really takes a lot of skill, but if you have the skill then she's S+ tier. I want to put someone else a little bit higher, by the way. I'll talk about him later, her later, sorry. Next up is Renekton. Renekton's early game is super powerful. I mean, do I really have to talk about it? His stun, his 1.5 second stun, which pretty much half-lives an enemy at level 2, right? It's incredible. And then also, if you combine it with Ignite, first ability to dashing on his third ability, his early game is incredible. His late game is where he does fall off, but late game you play him differently. You get a stone plate, you go into a team fight, and you tank, right? You just tank up, you stun whoever, and you tank. That's what he does in the late game. But his damage is really going to start to fall off in the late game, so, you know, that's why he's bottom S+ tier, but because his laning is so powerful, it still makes him S+ tier. Wukong. Now, Wukong is an interesting one, because when you get that Divine Sunderer on Wukong and have the Grasp of the Undying, it's like he's unkillable. In a bruiser versus bruiser matchup, this guy is unkillable because he heals so much. In teamfights, he's incredibly powerful with his ultimate, which deals maximum HP damage of the enemy, which is a lot. Like, it does a lot of damage when he uses it during teamfights. So this guy right here, his laning is easy because his first ability constantly heals him. Divine Sunderer Power Spike is incredible. His late game is really good. It's just like his very early game is not very nice, and besides that, he's just very powerful. Like, he just struggles against some of these matchups. Like late game Jax, for example, absolutely demolishes Wukong in a 1v1. But besides that, Wukong is just all in all a very great team fighter in the late game. Next up is one that I find very interesting, Nautilus, guys. So I played some Nautilus. Nautilus probably has the strongest level 1. Yeah, he has the strongest level 1 in the Baron lane out of any other Baron laner, even stronger than Fiora. Because as a Nautilus, you take your second ability, which gives you a shield and buffs your attack. You can out-trade anyone as a Nautilus level 1. And even when you reach those higher levels, when you build that, what is the item called? What is that item called? The mana item. Fimbulwinter. When you build a Fimbulwinter, the Winter's Approach, which goes into Fimbulwinter, it is so powerful because it constantly gives him a shield. Constant shielding. A lot of ability haste. You have unlimited mana, so strong. You can spam the hell out of your abilities. It's so good, and it gives him shielding every time you go for the stone plate. Late game, he becomes an absolute menace for the enemy to deal with during team fights. And early game, during the lane matchup, he pretty much wins every matchup because of his second ability. So Nautilus Baron lane, incredible. I'm making a video on him too, by the way. Don't you guys worry. Malphite also really powerful. I made a Malphite video a few days ago. You guys should definitely check it out, which shows that even a tank Malphite does insane damage with a Sunfire Aegis and stuff like that. By the way, look at this. Look at the Gragas picture. Who the hell is this guy right here who's trying to fight Gragas or something? I just realized. What the hell is that? What was I saying? Malphite, yeah. His ultimate is game-changing as well. His laning is incredibly easy with his first ability. You just poke the enemy to death. You go mana flow band, and you can spam the hell out of your abilities. Echo is an interesting one. Echo is not necessarily a Baron laner, but Echo is honestly so powerful that he can be played in the Baron lane. Like, he can be played in Baron just because he's so strong. His first ability allows safe farming, and he has good burst damage if he has to do burst damage. Now I want to mention something that I haven't played a lot of, but I've seen that it's powerful. Janna Baron lane. Believe it or not. So you're asking, what the hell, Hells? What is this? Janna Baron lane? Okay, hear me out. Second ability, free poking. These bruisers won't be able to reach you. They won't be able to reach you. There's multiple reasons for that. First of all, your second ability slows them. It has a long range. Secondly, your tornado. So even if they do reach you, you tornado them and you run away. Third of all, you're shielding. So you out-trade them. If they go on you, you shield yourself, give yourself bonus AD, tornado them, second ability, and you out-damage them. you just outdamage them. So Janna in the Baron lane, I may make a video of it, we will see, is definitely a pick, but don't play it without watching a video. I'll try to make a video of it soon. Don't play it without watching a video, please, because that's Giga Troll. I'll teach you guys how to do it. Irelia, I don't want to talk about Irelia. I'm only going to talk about a few champions here. Teemo is much stronger now. Like with the new ultimate, he's much stronger. Also with the buffed third ability, with the buffed range of the first ability, he's definitely much stronger. You know, with the Nashor's Tooth, also with the Awakened Soul Stealer build, like everything about Teemo just became much stronger. And I love the new Teemo, really. You know, I really love it. So I'll make a video on Teemo as well. Shen is very powerful too, but you're reliant on your team because of his ultimate, right? Like he's super good. He's super good, but your teammates have to make good fights on the opposite side of the map for you to be able to ult them and make it worthy. So if your team doesn't do that, his ultimate is not going to be very useful, right? So that's the thing about Shen. It's not like one of these carries right here that can solo carry the game. Shen is not one of those. Shen really, a lot of power of Shen lies within his ultimate, which allows him to go in, taunt the enemies, and do a lot of damage. Jace kinda sucks. He actually sucks so much, I'm not even sure why I put him there. Jace is terrible right now. Like, they buffed Jace, but he's still terrible. Mundo is much better than people think. I keep saying this during every tier list. Mundo is so much better than people may think, especially if the enemy has a lot of magic damage. Because Spirit Visage is a broken item on Mundo, which gives you magic resist, of course. So if the enemy has a lot of magic damage, you pick Mundo and you build a Spirit Visage, and they're gonna have a really rough time killing you. Pantheon is okay, but he just really falls off. Pantheon, the thing about Pantheon is, like, he doesn't even reliably win matchups like these. Like, if you're up against a Garen, you don't reliably win that. If you're up against a Gragas, you don't reliably win that. You know, you don't reliably win the matchup as a Pantheon anymore. I don't know why. And then, as I said, in the late game, you get outskilled by everyone. You even get outskilled by a Renekton. Akali Baron lane is decent. You know, it's just decent. I don't recommend it, but it's decent. Cannon, it's all about the all-in, right? Like, it's all about the ultimate with Cannon. His laning is pretty good. Like, you can really poke even the top champions. But it's really all about his late game. You gotta reach late game, 3 items, gathering storm stacks, and then you're gonna be able to one-shot enemies with your ultimate. That's the power of Cannon. Nasus with his nerfed first ability. I don't like Nasus anymore. Like, it's not that bad because you fully upgrade your first ability first anyway. So if you reach like level 7, you won't really feel any difference. But still, I like, you're gonna be missing out on stacks, and I just don't think Nasus is amazing anymore. Still A tier, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's amazing. I want to talk about Kill as well, because I always put Kill in like the B or C tier, but honestly, Kill deserves A tier, honestly. Even though she didn't get changed, like, my opinion changed a little bit about her, because if you just know how to lane with Kill, you know, take minions with your abilities, play it safe, only take traits under your minions, stay under your turret, have good vision so you don't get ganked under your turret, all that kind of stuff. I explain all of this during my Kill videos, but basically, if you know how to play Kill, she's decent in the right draft. Kill absolutely hard counters AP assassins, so Evelynn, Akali, Katarina, Fizz, those champions. Kill absolutely hard counters, like hard counters. So if you're up against a lot of those champions, you can actually pick Kill in the Baron lane. So let's go to the jungle now. And jungle, Evelynn, guys, it's kind of funny. I kind of forgot about Evelynn in my recent tier list. I didn't really. I always put her in the S+ tier, but like, Evelynn is just broken still. If you know how to play Evelynn, it's just so unbelievably broken. S+ tier. Even Gragas with the buffs is not better than Evelynn. The thing about Evelynn is, unless you're in a really bad draft, she's broken. Like, there's obvious, well, not obvious, there's hard counters to Evelynn, like Gragas, like Nunu, you know. Amuma also kind of hard counters, like Galio, Kill. But unless the enemy picks like a lot of these hard counters, Evelynn is just insanely broken. The one-shotting, the late game one-shotting, her farming, she farms jungle so fast, you just gotta reach level 5. You're literally invisible. You can gank wherever you want and no one sees you coming. It's unbelievable, this champion. Next up is Gragas, and with the buffs, Gragas jungle was already insane. But with the buffs, he's even more insane, of course. So same story for jungle Gragas. You play full AP Gragas in the jungle, he farms jungle very fast because Smite gives him bonus damage since he does magic damage. And you farm your skill into the late game, and his ganking is amazing too. The beauty of Gragas is too, he can pretty much outsmite everyone because his abilities burst so hard. They do like so much damage to objectives, so you can outsmite pretty much anyone really. even without smite. That's the beauty. Like your first ability plus your ultimate can do like 1500 damage, and in the very late game like 2000 damage, maybe even 2500 damage if you have Infinity Orb. Next up is Wukong in the jungle, and same story. Like you reach level 5, he's insane. His ganking is good. His 1v1ing is decent. His second ability is amazing, especially now because you can jump over walls. Like as if Wukong wasn't good enough already. Now you can also jump over walls. So he's incredibly powerful right now. You know, the Divine Sunderer build, it fits him so well. Like you proc it so often. Next up is Lee Sin, and Lee Sin's early game dominance is just unbelievable. His ganking, you know, the ganking of Lee Sin. You guys know the nightmare of a good Lee Sin player, right? Like when you're playing in the mid lane and the enemy has like a really good Lee Sin, and that guy constantly ganks, you literally cannot do anything about it because he has so many dashes. He goes behind you and kicks you back. You can't dodge it. That's the thing, you cannot dodge it. So Lee Sin is just really good to force ganks, force kills for your team, and you can force invades as well. And the only problem is you rely on your team, because late game Lee Sin is trash. Now let's talk about a champion that is not trash in the late game, which is Echo, guys. Echo jungle is so good. I believe they actually nerfed Echo jungle. I think they made his jungle clear just a little bit slower, but still, Echo jungle as plus tier. So much burst damage. His ganking is really good if you know what you're doing, because you have to gank with his second ability. You have to predict where the enemy is going, but if you do it correctly, you either cut off the enemy or you stun them, which both should mean a kill. So he's really good. He's also incredibly good at turret diving because of his ultimate. It allows you to tank up one more turret shot and go into your ultimate and go right back in time, right? So Echo jungle is amazing. Olaf jungle is really, really good too if you need the true damage. Like if you're up against an Alistar or something, or a Garen or stuff like that, or Rammus, Olaf is so unbelievably good because he has so much true damage. And if the enemy has a lot of CC, you know, Olaf, because he can run right through it. Olaf does fall off a little bit in the late game because when you use your ultimate, you do lose your magic resist and your armor. So that is the risk you're taking, but that's how it works in Wilders, right? There's always a risk. Camille jungle, they kind of tried to stop Camille jungle like a while ago by taking away the hook shot, which gives her the bonus attack speed in the jungle. But still, Camille jungle S tier. Her ganking is like super good because of her ultimate and her second ability and her hook shot. Her team fighting is amazing. Her 1v1ing is great. Her late game is absolutely amazing. She can easily catch out enemies. And then her late game damage itself is just amazing too. She's also very good at securing objectives. So she really has it all as a jungler. Riven jungle, you know, Riven can take jungle pretty fast. While Riven's ganking is not the strongest, Riven's fighting and skirmishing is really good. Because if you're in a 2 versus 2, you use that Riven ultimate, you fight, she can just burst down one of the champions. And she does AoE damage as well. So even multiple champions, she does a lot of damage too. So Riven jungle is very, very strong. And late game, she's not the strongest late game champion, but definitely powerful enough. Morgana, the thing about Morgana is the fastest jungle clear in the game, and Morgana is a late game champion. Morgana's early game absolutely sucks, but if you reach late game with Morgana, with the Leandries, with the Rylai Scepter, with the anti-healing, she's so broken, like so broken in the late game. But of course you have to reach that late game, right? Morgana's ganking, believe it or not, is really not that good. Like you may think that it's really good because she has the longest route in the game, but it's not actually easy to hit it. Like if you actually hit it, sure, her ganking is amazing, but it's not always easy to hit because you have to show your face, then the enemy knows it's coming, so they're gonna try to dodge it, and the dark binding, it goes very slowly, so it's very easy to dodge. Something that's not easy to dodge is Vi's ultimate, which makes Vi a very strong jungler as well. Like besides Vi's 1v1ing, she's very good at 1v1ing, and her armor shredding, which is very underrated. Like Vi is a very good anti-tank champion. Like if a Garen goes into your team, Vi can shred up to like 45-50% of his armor with a black cleaver and her passive. So don't underestimate that of Vi. So if the enemy has a lot of tanks, Vi can shred the armor so easily of them. And then also her ultimate allows her to single out a very important enemy, and then her abilities are all meant to burst down one target. Like you can struggle with that in the late game if you're up against like an AoE team who can defend their target, but she doesn't have AoE, but she compensates for it for the single target damage, CC and stuff like that, right? Next up is Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix got nerfed pretty hard. Like his first ability does 10% less damage now if an enemy is isolated, which definitely hurts a lot. Like instead of dealing 1000 damage, you deal like, I think like 950 damage. No, I'm saying 10%, but it's like instead of 210%, it's now 200%. So it's not that dramatic, but it's still dramatic enough to you know, for you to realize it. So he does less damage now, but he's still S tier champion, still very, very powerful. His isolated damage is still very strong. It's just not as strong as before. He doesn't one-shot as hard as before anymore. Nunu is very good as well, because while Nunu may not deal that much damage, he's very tanky. His ultimate is a really good team fighting tool because of the slow and just the damage. And then also his sustainability because of his first ability. He has very good CC as well. Like, as I said, his ultimate slows, his third ability slows and roots, his second ability knocks up the enemies. So he has a lot of CC for team fights too. A champion that I've always underestimated up until I actually started playing him is Rammus, guys. If the enemy is heavy AD, Rammus is S+ tier. But I put him on the bottom S tier because, you know, there's likely going to be AP champions, but you can still build a Wit's End on him, which gives him a lot of magic resist. And Rammus is just so powerful, guys. He's so powerful. So, like, unless the enemy has a lot of magic damage, or unless the enemy has, like, a lot of armor penetration or true damage, Rammus is, like, kind of broken. But, of course, they likely will have one of these, because otherwise the enemies are kind of inting the draft. So, that's the thing with Rammus. You got to pick him into the right draft. Next up is Mastery, and this guy, like, everyone hates him, but he's good. Like, he's actually still good in the game. The change that they did to his first ability, which allows him to do so much more single target damage, that's honestly what truly made him very good now. Like, he's so powerful. He still takes jungle pretty fast, not as fast as before when his first ability was bugged, but still very, very fast. Next up, I want to talk about Fiora. Fiora jungle is great. She takes jungle very fast. Her 1v1ing is super powerful. She can even 1v1 at least Sin in the early game. And then, of course, when she reaches level 5 and up, no one can 1v1 her anymore because of her ultimate. So she's just a very good jungler. Her ganking is also surprisingly good. And it's not like she doesn't have CC, but her ganking is surprisingly good because of her ultimate. Ultimate gives her bonus movement speed, and then she can very easily dash on the enemy and just kill that enemy. Next up is, well, who do I want to talk about? Nautilus jungle, who clears jungle pretty decently. And as I said, Nautilus is just very good now. He can maneuver around very easily with his first ability. So he's very fast to maneuver around the map. And he's so tanky. Like, he's just so tanky. And he has so much CC as well. His ganking is actually unbelievably good because of his ultimate. Then he can follow up with his first ability, and he can follow up with a basic attack that roots the enemy. He can then follow up with his third ability that slows the enemy. He has so much CC and such good ganking. Next up, I want to talk about Amumu, who's also a bit of an underrated jungler. I played not a lot. I played some Amumu. I'm working on an Amumu video as well. He's good. Like, he's definitely good. He really works well if you need that CC, the big CC ability. So, like, especially Amumu, when you combine him with champions like a Ziggs or a Katarina, because Amumu goes in, he ults, and then Katarina follows up, right? Or Amumu goes in, he ults, and then Ziggs follows up with the ult, right? So Amumu is kind of a wombo combo champion, like a really good team fighting wombo combo champion, because when you hit the enemies, they're all gonna take 10% bonus true damage as well. That's how Amumu works. So when your team goes in, all of them are gonna do 10% true damage. So that's what makes him good, honestly. But besides that, he's kind of bad. Like, his ganking kind of sucks. His 1v1ing is absolutely horrible. His skirmishing is really not that good. So it's really only about his ultimate and late game all-ins and just that. I want to talk about Rengar too, because Rengar kind of sucks now. The nerf that they did to his base attack damage really hurt him. Like, you really rely on getting kills and assists now to get that 5% bonus damage each time, right? If you're not able to get that, it's gonna be so hard to do something in the late game, because you're even gonna get 1v1 by some ADCs because he has so little damage right now. Oh, and Jack's jungle, don't play it. It's simple, don't play it. Like, I don't even need to tell you anything else. He doesn't get the stacks anymore from the jungle, guys. Now about the mid lane, I think I forgot a champion in the mid lane, but now I actually forgot who I forgot in the mid lane. Let me just quickly scan through it. Who did I forget? Oh, I forgot Galio, by the way. Galio goes here. But I forgot another champion. I remember there was another champion that I forgot. It literally came up to me, but then I forgot about it again. Singed, no. It's sad. I forgot about it. Yeah, I just forgot. Whatever. Okay, so mid lane. Katarina, guys. I gotta do it again. I remember putting Katarina in S tier. Katarina got nerfed and all that, but no, guys, no. Katarina is still, in my opinion, the most disgusting mid lane champion in the game. Like, when you have a good Katarina player, she's just kind of absolutely hard carry the game. You guys have had those games, right? Like, where your entire team is trash, but then the Katarina who's 12-0 just hard carries the game, and it's just so disgusting because no one can do anything about it. there's only a few champions that can deal with Katarina. You know, those are CC champions like Vi, for example. Vi hard count is Katarina. But like if there's not a lot of CC and no real champions that can lock down Katarina, she just goes absolutely ham. Just ham and destroys everyone. After Katarina comes Orianna. Orianna is a much different champion, of course. Because Orianna is not like Katarina, but the thing about Orianna is reliable. You can always pick her and she can always carry the game. Like when you reach late game with Orianna, she becomes like one of the strongest champions in the game, and it's so easy to play. I made an Orianna video very recently as well to really teach you how to master Orianna, because you have an average Orianna and then you have a pro Orianna. There is a big difference between the two. I'm not gonna go into it because I literally explained it a few days ago in my video. Next up is Karma mid. Full AP Karma works very, very well. Like Luden's Echo, Rabadol's Deathcap, Liandry's, all that kind of stuff on Karma is super powerful in the mid lane. Your laning is super strong, and then her late game is really strong as well. Her shielding is amazing, her ultimate. Like she really has it all, to be honest, as a mid laner. And also ganking is good with her because her second ability roots the enemy, her first ability slows the enemy, and her ultimate knocks them back. So she really has it all. Next up is Khazad, who is not the most broken mid laner now, but he's still broken. He's just going to be a bit squishier in the late game, but you'll get a lot of Aegis and a Seraph's Embrace anyways. So he's going to be super, well, not super, but he's going to be tanky enough anyways. They didn't touch his damage, so he's still going to do an incredible amount of damage. Definitely S+ tier champion, and you can still abuse the hell out of him. Another one is Diana, and Diana, I don't know why she's not like picked or banned every game, because she's so strong. People are really not playing enough Diana in my opinion, because she's so unbelievably powerful right now as well. It's just crazy. Her ultimate, her second ability shielding, every bonus move, bonus attack speed that she gets from every ability. It's just crazy. Like, she's so powerful. Her late game is unbelievably broken too. It's just her early game that kind of sucks a little bit. Next up is Ahri. The change that they did to Ahri made her so much stronger than before. Like, the ultimate, she can keep going in team fights. And not only that, whenever she gets a kill or an assist, she heals up by so much. So, like, she heals up by a lot and she can keep going. That was honestly the one big problem Ahri used to have. Because like with Ahri, you would go in, all in, and you'd only be able to get like one kill. And then you would be kind of useless. But now, after you get that kill, first of all, you heal up by a lot. Secondly, you get another charge of your ultimate, which allows you to keep going and just go again, right? Go again, charm another champion, kill that champion, you get another ultimate, right? That's another part of your ultimate. It's just, that's what makes Ahri really strong. Next up is Akshan. The buff to Kraken Slayer indirectly buffs Akshan, because Kraken Slayer is really, really good on Akshan. And then also Akshan itself, honestly, he's just very strong. He's very, very strong. It's a very high skilled champion, but he's just very strong. So you can play him in the mid lane, and he does super well in the mid lane. Like, he wins pretty much any matchup. His ganking is very, very nice as well, because he can use his second ability and avoid any wards, because he becomes invisible during his second ability. So wards won't see you when you gank. Another champion that's very good at ganking is Twisted Fate, guys. I'm going to upload a Twisted Fate video very soon. This champion is really good. He only struggles with one thing, which is late game sustained damage. So like if the enemy has a lot of healing in the late game, playing Twisted Fate is going to be very hard. But first of all, you can poke enemies out very hard. And you can catch enemies with Twisted Fate. Like with the 2-second stun of the gold card, you can catch enemies very, very easily. His ganking is the best of the game, because of his ultimate, of course. So you can use that as well. Like, Twisted Fate is a late game champion, but you can get kills in the early game with the ultimate. It does have a long cooldown, but with the new update where they reduced all ultimate cooldowns, they reduced Twisted Fate's ultimate cooldown by a lot. I believe they reduced it by like 25 seconds as opposed to the old ultimate. So you can really spam your ultimate as well now. So Twisted Fate is just very powerful. I wouldn't necessarily put him in S+ tier though, because he can't hard carry as much as the S+ tier champions, to be honest. Next up is Echo Mid. Echo Mid is very, very good. He does so much damage. It's a very nice assassin to have. His ganking is really good. His late game is broken. It's just his early game. He does get bullied in lane, especially when you don't have your ultimate. He will get bullied by pretty much anyone. Next up is Veigar. And Veigar is crazy. Like, they buffed the CC duration of his third ability, which really makes him kind of broken. But it's like, I don't know. You do still have to reach the late game. His early game is not that good. He can't push lane very fast. Like, if you're up against an Ahri, for example, Ahri is constantly going to outpush your wave. She's going to be ganking, and you can't really do that. So you're not going to have priority against those types of champions. So that is kind of the problem of Veigar. But of course, when you reach the mid-late game, with the cage, the team fights, that's where his true power comes from. Next up is Brand, and Brand is so underrated and so powerful. I still haven't made a Brand video. I played a lot of games of him, but I still haven't mastered him to a degree where I want to make a video on him. Brand is unbelievable. His early game, it's quite easy to survive. You can poke the enemy with your third ability in lane. You can either go for Scorch or Gathering Storm on Brand. Scorch for early game poking and harassing. Gathering Storm, of course, for late game damage. And in the late game, guys, you know what the beauty is of Brand? Like, sure, he has good damage in team fights, but you know what's even better? When the enemy actually tries to kill you as a Brand, all you have to do, spam your abilities and then click on your ultimate. Just click on it, and when there's like 3 enemies on top of you, you use Stasis Enchant, and all of them are gonna explode. And you're gonna chunk them down to like, depends on the game, but like at least 50% HP. And then your team just gonna clean up. Like, Stasis Enchant on Brand is just unbelievably broken in the mid-late game. Unbelievably broken. There is no counterplay to it. The only thing the enemies can do is CC you and just one-shot you. Like, oh yeah, that is the only counterplay actually. But besides that, there was no counterplay to that in the late game. Now, Gragas in the mid lane. Yeah, Gragas shows up in the mid lane too. Gragas destroys champions like a Ziggs, for example. Like the long range champions, Gragas absolutely destroys them. You know, also Veigar, for example, because you can flash on them with your third ability and one-shot them with your ultimate and all of your other abilities. So that's the thing with Gragas. Like, he destroys those long range champions, and he's also good against magic damage. Magic damage assassins. So like Katarina, Akali, Khazrin, Diana. Gragas counters those champions as well. So like, you can pretty much always pick Gragas in the mid lane. Galio is very, very strong into magic assassins as well. You know, when you're up against Akali, Katarina, and stuff like that, Echo, you can always pick Galio, and you'll pretty much guarantee yourself to win the mid lane. Galio is very good at aiding your teammates during skirmishes. Like, if your jungler is trying to invade, you can follow up with your ultimate. You can gank with your ultimate, and then also during late game team fights, Galio's ultimate is very strong. Another champion that showed up in the mid lane tier list is Pyke. They buffed Pyke, and Pyke mid lane is surprisingly strong. Like, he does pretty well. He can poke enemies pretty decently with his first ability. His ganking is what's the most amazing, to be honest. Like, if someone ganks your lane, and you as a Pyke hook the enemy, you can then instantly stun them, so you don't give them a chance to flash away. You hook them and you instantly use your third ability so they can't flash away. Then you hit a basic attack which procs Electrocute. Then the enemy's probably gonna flash away. You ignite and you ult and you kill them. Like, that's the thing with Pyke. Also, his ganking itself is pretty good. Like, you can use your second ability to become invisible. I don't know what this is. This just randomly happened. What was I gonna say? You can use your second ability to become invisible. And then, what was I gonna say? Jesus. You can use your third ability with a flash or protobelt to extend the range and to stun the enemies and just kill them. Next up is Aurelia. Aurelia mid lane, like same story as Katarina, but just not as broken as Katarina. You know, the really good Aurelia players are really gonna be able to abuse this champion. But there's not that many good Aurelia players. But if you're really good at Aurelia, you can absolutely abuse the hell out of her. Working on an Aurelia video, by the way. Zed got nerfed, but Zed still feels decently strong, I want to say. Like, decent. Definitely not very strong. Actually, I would put him below Yasuo. Yasuo definitely feels stronger than Zed. Yasuo is also a very high skilled champion, but Yasuo with like all the knockups. There's a lot of champions with knockups, especially now Nautilus as well. So if you just have to pick a lot of knockup champions, Wukong is the best one, for example, with Yasuo, and then you follow up with that ultimate, and he's really, really powerful. He skills beautifully into the late game as well. Ziggs, I have a Ziggs video as well. I'm not sure if I have uploaded it already or if I'm gonna upload it, but a Ziggs video is gonna come to my channel. This champion is always a good pick. Like, from long range, you do so much damage. His turret pushing is crazy. His ganking is good with his ultimate as well. Like, really, he's just solid. Like, he skills very well into the late game, but then his early game is also strong. Annie feels weaker. She's still strong, but she definitely feels weaker than before. Like, she still has that crazy all-in with her ultimate, but it's really not as good as it used to be. Her ganking is decent as well, but it's just not amazing. Like, Annie is just not amazing. Lux mid lane, the thing is, like, as a Lux mid lane, it's very high skilled because you gotta be able to hit that root. And when you play her in the mid lane, it's gonna be a bit harder. Like, when you play her in the dragon lane, there's 2 enemies to hit, so you can punish them a bit more. But mid lane, in the mid lane, you're very likely up against like a ranged champion who's gonna be super hard to hit, especially from behind the minions. So Lux mid lane, you know, it's gonna be rough to play it well. Fizz is quite underrated, I want to say, but he's really not that strong. But he's not weak. That's what I want to say. He's not weak, but he's also not that strong. So if you play Fizz, you one-shot squishies. You know, if you're up against those squishies, if you're up against a lot of squishies like Pike, for example. I'm not saying enchanters, because enchanters kinda counter Fizz, because enchanters can give a shield or healing or stuff like that to our teammate, so the one shot becomes just a little bit harder. But if you're up against like a very squishy champion normally, you know, like Twisted Fate, for example, Fizz absolutely destroys Twisted Fate, by the way, if you didn't know already, because you can dodge the gold card with Fizz's third ability. Anything else here? Cannon, don't play him in the mid lane. Jay sucks. Seraphine, only play Seraphine against a lot of melee champions. That's where she excels at, but besides, don't play her. Next up is the Dragon Lane. And Dragon Lane, guys, I'm playing a lot of Dragon Lane now, and Vayne is still the queen of the Dragon Lane. They actually nerfed her. They actually nerfed her pretty hard, but somehow, some way, this champion shows up on top of the S+ tier again. When you pick it with an Enchanter support, and the Enchanter goes Ardent Sensor, she becomes so powerful. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy how strong this champion really is. Then next up is Ezreal as well. Actually, something else to add to Vayne. There's not a lot of counters to Vayne, and late game Vayne is unstoppable, because even tanks are not tanks to Vayne, because she does true damage. So that's the thing what you have with Vayne. She's weak early game, but late game, nothing can stop her. Nothing can soak up her damage. Next up is Ezreal. Ezreal also does pretty well into tanks. Like, he can really chunk down tanks with his first ability. Not as strong as Vayne, but definitely I would say he's up there. Like, he's really up there. He does so much damage. He does a lot of poke damage, a lot of sustain damage as well. And he's really hard to catch because of his third ability. And every time you hit your first ability, it reduces the cooldowns of his other abilities. So if you're a good Ezreal and you're constantly hitting that first ability, you can really punish the enemies by constantly spamming your other abilities as well. Next up is Lucian. He did get nerfed, but he's still very, very strong. Only his first ability got nerfed, but like, his mobility is just crazy. You can clearly see the very mobile ADCs are the ones that are on top. Like, you know, Vayne, Ezreal, Lucian, Xayah, not that mobile, but her ultimate allows her to dodge some stuff. And then Kai'Sa with her ultimate and her third ability. Like, having mobility as an ADC just feels very, very strong in the current update. So yeah, next up is Xayah. Xayah is just honestly very strong because her basic attacks hurt a lot when you have the feathers. Her root is amazing when the enemy has a diving composition. So if the enemy has a comp that is supposed to dive you a lot, then Xayah is amazing. And then also her ultimate to dodge out stuff like Camille's ultimate, you know, like Ashe's ultimate. You can dodge everything with it. Next up is Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa doesn't have a lot of range, but her isolated damage is amazing. Her ultimate is amazing. Like, her ultimate allows her to get to a safe place or to just be super aggressive. Like, if one of your teammates dives the enemy backline and knocks someone up, you can follow up with your ultimate and be right there next to the squishies and just destroy them. And bonus points if you can isolate a squishy in the backlines, because then you're just gonna pretty much one-shot that squishy. Next up is Draven. Draven got nerfed, but he still feels very strong. A good Draven is really gonna be able to abuse his early game power spike. Just the X's hurt so much. But then honestly, even if you don't abuse his early game, mid game is still a place for you to do something. Like, if you are able to get some kills mid game, you can still get up to like 3, 4, 5 items when the enemy has an item less than you. You can still snowball the game. But then in the very late game, that's when he starts to fall off, right? That's when the champion starts to fall off, because he only does single target damage, and he doesn't have any mobility, and he doesn't have a lot of range. So that's where he falls off in the late game. Someone that does have a lot of range is Caitlyn, however. Caitlyn, I always say it, Caitlyn is a very weird power spike curve. Her level 1 to 3 is very strong, but then when you reach the mid game, she becomes so weak. But then in the late game, she's very strong. The thing about Caitlyn is, like, she can maintain a very long distance. You build lethal tempo on Caitlyn, by the way, and she can stack it off so easily. Even when a tank goes in, you can just basic attack the tank many, many times, put down your traps so the enemies walk into them and allows you to deal bonus damage, and keep fighting. Just keep shooting from a long, long range. And then when an enemy is very low and isolated, you ult and you finish them off. Like, and when you get dived as well, Caitlyn can survive with a third ability. It allows her to catch an enemy in a net and slow that enemy, and she can maintain a distance. Ashe is also very good. Like, her early game is decent because she can poke in the lane, but her late game is where it's really at. She does so much damage, and the slow allows her to catch up anyone. No one can run away from Ashe. The only way you can run away from Ashe is if you flash over a wall or something. But besides that, you're going to be perma-slowed, especially in the late game, as I said, because the slow becomes stronger the more crit you have. And her ultimate is also one of the longest CC durations in the game. Next up is Varus, and the one right here is AP Varus. This is not Lethality Varus in the list, it's AP Varus. I honestly need to make an AP Varus video because they buffed him to a point where he's actually strong now. Not that strong, but strong. His second ability cooldown got reduced, his bonus attack speed got increased whenever you kill an enemy, the damage on his second ability got increased. It's all about AP Varus now, right? They did nerf normal Varus, but AP Varus has been buffed. Next up is Jinx. You only want to play Jinx with an Enchanter, really. And Jinx with an Enchanter, if you're good at Jinx, you're going to absolutely stomp the enemy with this champion. She's crazy. But she's really not that strong, because if you fall behind, her damage feels like 0. But if you're ahead, of course, you can snowball very easily. But as I said, if you fall behind, Jinx is really a champion that does like no damage at all when you fall behind. So it feels really hard to come back as a Jinx when you fall behind. Like, you really got to steal away enemy jungle. You really gotta farm like crazy, take turrets, and then get back into the game. Because if you're behind in gold, you're not gonna be able to do anything on Jinx. I want to talk about Tristana too. Tristana feels very strong in this update. Not as strong as the others, but okay. Actually, you know, she deserves to be here, bottom S tier. She definitely feels strong enough to be like bottom S tier. Like, once you reach a certain point, like level 9, 10, 11, she gets a lot of range, and you can actually abuse that range to really poke down enemies. And you go for lethal tempo on Tristana, by the way, which allows you to proc your third ability very, very easily. She does so much damage in late game, especially when you reach like level 13, 14, 15, because then her range becomes so big, so big. Like, she can outrange a lot of champions at that stage of the game. Like, you even rival Caitlyn's range. Is that crazy? How was that? I don't know. I heard something. But yeah, next up is Lux. Lux in the bot lane is very good. Like, Lux in the bot lane is really amazing. You know, you can root enemies more easily, and then when you skill into the late game, she's so powerful. Like, full AP Lux does so much damage. It's crazy. Also, her shielding is quite underrated. They buffed her shielding, her second ability, which is going to be very powerful in the late game to have as well. Like, you shield allies, but it's really about her one-shotting potential. And also, like, cross-map, her ult is really good. Like, you can gank lanes literally across the map with your ultimate. And it's especially good if you combine it with CC. Like, for example, you have a Twisted Fate in the mid lane. He throws a gold card. You have 2 seconds to ult someone, so you're always going to be able to hit your ultimate in that situation. Next up, I want to talk about Miss Fortune. Miss Fortune is really not that strong, but like, her first ability is, you know what the thing is about Miss Fortune? She has 3 things that are strong about her. The rest is absolutely useless. Number 1, her first ability does a lot of damage. Number 2, her passive. You know, if you constantly hit a different enemy, it does a lot of damage. Number 3, her ultimate. The rest is useless. Like, these are the only things that Miss Fortune can do. And if you're unable to utilize these things, you can pretty much go AFK as the champion. Like, she doesn't really do anything else. Next up is Nasus. You only want to play him with Senna. You know, Senna and Nasus bot lane. That's really the only reason you want to play him. You play Nasus with a Font of Life. If you want to learn how to play it, I have a lot of those videos. I reached Challenger playing Nasus in the bot lane twice. So if you want to check it out, look it up and you'll see it on my channel. Next up, you know, Jhin is so unbelievably sad that I honestly just put him in the C tier. That's how sad Jhin makes me. Next up is the support tier list, and oof, support. Something changed. Rakan. I decided to put Rakan in the S+ tier next to Yuumi and Karma because full AP Rakan, his engage just does so much damage. CC combined with crazy burst damage, honestly, it's just way too strong on Rakan. Like, if you hit 3 enemies or something, you half-life all 3 of them. I mean, you're a support. You're literally a support, and you provide that much CC and you do that much damage. It's pretty crazy to me, to be honest. And now, Yuumi, she got nerfed, but it doesn't really matter. She's still unbelievably powerful. You just gotta attach to the right ally, and your buff is just the strongest out of any other enchanter in the game. You just have to make sure, like, Yuumi is actually harder to play than people think. Like, you just have to make sure you don't get caught by CC. Like, if you detach from an ally and someone CCs you, you're screwed because you can't reattach for like 5 seconds or something, which allows the enemies to kill you because you don't have a flash when you play Yumi. So keep that in mind. That's very important with Yumi. But besides that, if you're just able to play Yumi very well, she's broken. Karma's also still broken. You can play full AP Karma, or you can play the traditional support Karma, the Enchanter's Karma, with Ardent Sensor, Staff of Flowing Water, and all that kind of stuff. The shielding is just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. If you know how to play Karma, her level 1 is also really nice. Just Karma has it all, guys. This champion literally has it all. Next up is Nami. Nami is very strong as well. Her laning is super powerful because she does a lot of damage. She heals. She has good CC. And then her team fighting is also very strong because of her ultimate. Oh my god. One of the strongest ultimates that any enchanter has in the game. It's crazy. You can cancel out abilities. Like if you're up against a Katarina or something, for example, you can cancel out her ultimate with your ultimate. You can cancel out Jin's ultimate. You can cancel out whatever. You can cancel out so many different things. The beauty is of Nami as well. When you use your ultimate, not only does it knock up enemies, it also slows them to a point where it's going to be a free hit for your first ability as well. So that's a double knock-up. So on top of all of the healing, the laning, and all of that, she has those crazy knock-ups as well, which kind of forces the enemy to flash away your stuff, which is amazing, of course. Next up is Thresh. Thresh is also really powerful. Like the later the game goes, the tankier Thresh gets and the more damage Thresh does. But early game Thresh is also very strong. The laning, you know, the third ability, the bonus damage you get on your basic attack. Thresh is just strong throughout the entire game, to be honest. There is one champion in the game that pretty much allows you to win your lane for free when you're up against a Thresh. Do you guys know which support that is? This guy right here. Believe it or not, Mundo support against a Thresh is gonna be the absolute easiest lane that you're ever gonna have in your life. Thresh cannot do anything against Mundo. Mundo destroys a Thresh. You just destroy Thresh. You destroy him in the early game, mid game, late game. It really doesn't matter. Like if you're ever up against a Thresh, I'm not sure if I've ever made a Mundo support video. I'd really have to make one because I played Mundo support like twice today as well. 2 times against a Thresh, of course, and I just absolutely demolished the Thresh. So yeah, just real quick, Mundo against the Thresh is just broken. Nautilus support is good. Not amazing, but good. Like, I still wouldn't pick him over any of these champions, but he's just good. He's really, really good. His hook is very nice. What the hell is that sound? I don't know. Pyke in the support role is also great. Like, he may struggle in the lane a little bit, but when you catch out that enemy, when you catch out that enemy with your hook, that's where his power comes from. Because his combo is undodgeable. You cannot flash out of his combo. Because he hooks and he instantly uses his third ability. I need to make a Pyke video as well. I gotta work on that one too, yeah. Next up is Alistar. Alistar with, you know, one of the best turret engagers is Alistar because of that ultimate. I just want to talk about Blitzcrank, guys. Let me talk about Blitzcrank, because Blitzcrank is S tier right now. I'm gonna make a video on him as well. His hooking cooldown really, really made him good. Really made him good. Also, the ultimate changes. In the late game, when you reach level 13 on Blitzcrank, his ultimate cooldown is 10 seconds. 10. Yes, 10. Literally 10. So, Blitzcrank, his early game is good, his mid game is good, but then his late game is absolutely insane. You go for Famebow Winter on him, and you get constant shielding during team fights as well, so he's tanky too, and you constantly disrupt the enemy. This is also a champion that hard counters Katarina, by the way. If the enemy picks Katarina, you pick Blitzcrank, you destroy her, because you can cancel her stuff all the time with your first ability, with your third ability, and your ultimate, because it's a silence. It cancels out everything. Next up is Janna. Janna's support is really strong as well. Her second ability, poking, is great. Her tornado during the lane is great, especially because they made her tornado faster now. Her third ability to buff your ally. And then that ultimate in the late game as well. If the enemy has like a Ziggs or something and he pokes you down, you just use your ultimate and heal up your entire team to 100%. It's just crazy. Oh, I talked for a long time. Senna support is good if you already have tanks. Like, you already need to have tanks. She does good in the early game laning, and she's great in the late game as well. She does a lot of damage. Her ultimate is really good too. She's just pretty good. I want to talk about Sona as well, because Sona got nerfed pretty hard. This is the nerf Sona needed, because Sona was broken. No one just realized Sona was broken. I had a 70% Sona win rate. I reached Challenger once with Sona. Now she's balanced. sitting in the middle of the A tier. She's balanced. Like, she's still good, but she's not broken. Like, she cannot spam the hell out of her abilities anymore. They nerfed that about her. So but she's still playable. She's still very, very nice. Brand support is very aggressive. Like, if you really want to be aggressive in the dragon lane, you pick brand support and you just destroy the enemy. So like, that's the thing about brand. But again, make sure you have a tank in your team when you play brand support. Soraka is good. Leona is good. Anyone else I want to talk about? Honestly, not really. Malphite, you could go full AP Malphite support. Your team is probably going to flame you, but it can actually be good. Full AP Malphite support. You just all in the enemy, you do a crazy amount of damage. I don't really recommend it though, to be honest. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I will see you all in the next Wild Rift video. Bye bye.